Rob Rens. Thanks for joining me. First question I ask everyone, what made you join the military? What years were you in? And just kind of high level what your jobs were in while you were there.
Yeah. So I was in the Marines from 2003 to 2011. I joined maybe within 5 to 7 days after 9/11. So I was a sophomore in high school, and I think I was 15 or 16 at the time when it happened. I knew that I was going to go in the military. So I have a very long military heritage in my family. My grandfather fought at Bellawood in World War II. My dad is a 30-year retired Marine colonel who flew C-130s. So that was always going to be my path. What pushed it over the edge, I guess I might say, was 9/11. And that's what really prompted me to go down to the recruiter's office and enlist. So I was in from 2003 to 2011. I was a mortuary affairs specialist, which most people, when I say that, they're like, oh, I've never met one of you before.
Yeah.
So basically what a mortuary affairs specialist does is there's a combat operation, there's a non-combat operation. Combat operations are to recover the remains of soldiers, sailors, airmen, coastie, Marines that are killed in action. We inventory their effects, we process them for a military burial, and then we do what's called a dignified transfer and get them on an angel flight back home for burial. When we're home, on the majority of time, our unit is performing funeral services for either men and women who were killed in action or veterans who died, 40, 50, 60 years after they left the military. So, so that's the majority of what I did when I was in.
Awesome. And then, so I'm just going to jump right into it. Most people I've been speaking with on this podcast have been transition specialists, working with people, whether they're in TAPS or just getting out of the military. You have a very different, I would say, outlook and approach almost. For people who haven't seen your content on LinkedIn, it's super energetic, positive, all about discipline and continuous improvement. I would just love to know kind of how you got there, because I know from our brief messaging back and forth, you always didn't have that mindset when you got out. I think you fell into kind of the pitfalls that a lot of veterans do when they transition out, and just how you kind of got to this spot in your life where, like you said, you're grinding at work, but then you let your hair down, and just the outlook that allows you to be positive, and you can tell from all your content, right? So I'd just love to know kind of your journey and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, for sure. So, I would say I sort of fell into wanting to talk about military transition and establish myself as a thought leader with a little bit of a different perspective from what I see from all the other ones that are doing great work out there. What I really saw, the narrative was, get out, get a really good resume, get really good at interview skills, land a great corporate job, and go. Well, I'm kind of a data nerd. And so I got into some statistics. I was reading an article, and what really spoke to me was 67% of newly transitioned veterans will quit their first job within 2 years and will express overall job dissatisfaction within 2 years of their EAS. Dude, me too.
In there.
So, 67%. Yeah, I mean, you're batting 700 almost with that. And so another statistic that stood off the page to me was that 4.5% of post 9/11 veterans choose entrepreneurship as their route after they get out of the service. Now, correlation is not causation,
right?
But I have a very hard time believing that suicide, anger, depression, alcoholism, drug addiction, that all of those problems that veterans, we have the highest demographics for all of that, highest usage rates for all of that. You can't tell me that if you hate your job, that those other things aren't manifesting themselves in some form or fashion in your life.
Totally.
So what I've gotten heavy on, because I did my transition journey was that I got lucky. I went to a good school. I found a good first job, and I turned that job into a better job and that job into a better job until I was at 31, I was at the top of the mountain for people in my age group. I was a director of sales for North America for a massive global insurance company. I mean, huge salary, great benefits. Like on the outside looking in, you're like, that dude transitioned successfully.
Right.
But inside, I still felt unfulfilled,
Totally.
I guess would be the word that I would use, because for all the reasons that everybody expresses that they are dissatisfied with their job. I didn't see a clear alignment with the work that I did to the mission and vision of the company. Chain of commands weren't always clear. There was a lot of decision by committee. And I think those things are frustrating to the veteran community. So, really long-winded way to answer your question. I wanted to be the one who sort of carried the torch for veteran entrepreneurship. Because when I stepped out on my own and I allowed my creativity to flow, and I could make a decision to do an event at my office on October 10th to work on personal branding, I didn't have to ask anybody for permission for that. Right. It was like, okay, I've got the right people in my network. Let's do it. Don't care what the obstacles are. We'll figure it out, And so it's just, that's what I want. I want people to be able to feel what I feel, which is I really love what I do now.
That's awesome. I feel like it's so easy for, especially, just focusing on veterans who are transitioning out. It's very easy to fall into a job and get comfortable with just, okay, I made it. I have a job. Here's a paycheck. Right. And like you said, you start getting promoted, you get more and more comfortable, but there's not that same drive and that same love for your work. That's very difficult to replicate, as opposed to like having an entrepreneurial path, starting something Certainly. That you love, and then being able to actually, everything you put in, you're going to get back from it. It's not someone else who's benefiting from it, or like you said, you're not dealing with a lot of the red tape that most companies have to deal with, which is just chaos for
certainly veterans. Yeah, certainly for the majority. There's going to be that select few, the outliers, the 80-20 rule, that 20% that really land that great job that aligns with their why, their purpose. But the other 80% or 67%, which is what the numbers tell us, they don't have that. And right. And I feel like, I put a post up on LinkedIn the other day talking about one of the statements that I hate so much. It is what it is. When we say it is what it is, okay, the inference is that there's nothing that we can do about it. Well, 67% of people are going to be pissed off at their job after the first 2 years. It is what it is. I call bull on that. I call bull on that every single time, because we can do something about it. We can make it somehow different, and maybe 67% and move to that 4.5% that are choosing entrepreneurship. And now we're down to 55% and 13%, but that 13% is really happy, and that 67% is shrinking. So that's, insurance is my profession, but this has become my passion.
So then what do you think that the key is to get, that 67% where you would think would be more happy, whether it's not necessarily starting their own business, but pursuing a passion, pursuing something that they actually enjoy doing on the day-to-day, where it's not work? What is the secret to kind of getting that out there, and how do you get more veterans involved in that process? Because it is terrifying, right? It is scary if you're someone who's just getting out of the military and you have the options between landing a job and being able to provide for yourself and maybe your family, or, all right, I'm putting my chips on the table and this is like super risky, but it's a passion of mine. Yeah. How do you kind of leverage the two of those and start getting that information out to people? Because a big thing that I've noticed, while I've been talking with people like you, is there's so many great resources out there. There's tons of great content, but it's not a lot of it is getting to the people who need it. I know me personally, when I got out in 2012, I didn't have a LinkedIn. I wasn't speaking to anyone or preparing for anything. So it's right. A big part of it is just, how do you get that message out there? Because if you tell a 21-year-old getting out of the military, like, hey, you can have a job, and in 10 years, you could be super successful and make a ton of money. Mm-hmm. You're going to hate your job, but you're going to make a ton of money. Or let's go this other route. I think that 67% probably would. Yeah. take that job, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 And what I'm proposing is not for everybody, because there's huge risks involved with being an entrepreneur, and there's a lot of barriers to entry for like a 22-year-old corporal or sergeant who's just getting out, has a wife and kids, because what you'll find when you get into entrepreneurship is you have to have capital. You can have the best idea in the entire world, but if you don't have money, nothing happens. And so that is a barrier to entry there. And so that approach, that choice should be, let me take advantage of my GI Bill benefits and let me get an education. But knowing that I'm going to use this education on something that will give me the practical understanding of how to run a business. So whether that's a degree, a robust business degree that covers finance and sales and marketing and product innovation, supply chain management, whatever your idea is, when you're looking for the school, find the right program that's going to help you on your journey to becoming an entrepreneur and a business person. So that's step number one. Step number two is then, instead of taking the first job that comes your way, call somebody like myself who is a veteran, who is an entrepreneur, and say, hey, I want to come be an entrepreneur at your company. And I want you to teach me how to run my own business from startup to growth to, merger and acquisition, or wherever that point is where you want to get off that train and maybe start something else. So, to answer I think that's the two-part solution to it. But on top of it is it's marketing.
Right.
It's being out there in LinkedIn and having people like myself or like Rich Cardona or some of these other people that I'm very close with that have done exactly what we're talking about, which was gone corporate, been miserable, started their own thing, were happy, and are now in the flow of momentum, but telling other veterans that are transitioning, hey, you can do this too, and here's some resources that'll guide you along the way, or here's how I think you should get there. Go to school, find a program, find a veteran entrepreneur, work for him for a year and a half, and then go do your own thing.
That's awesome. So it's so great. Like even the going to school thing, I love how you said, like using the GI Bill, obviously it's incredible. I think everyone should take advantage of it. But just being cognizant of, okay, don't look at the GI Bill as a gateway to receiving BAH for the next few years. And that's your job. Actually have a plan and find what you're in love with. Even if it's just the general business route.
Yeah.
Learn everything you can from the finance side to the accounting, the marketing, everything like that. Hone your craft, and then it is just finding someone who's willing to take you in as an entrepreneur. That's a great term. I love that. And let you learn from them. So was that kind of how you did it at first? I mean, when you left your corporate gig, right?
Yeah.
How did you kind of evolve to that next step?
Well, so here was the great thing about my corporate experience is I learned how to run a business within a business. When you make it to a certain level in a corporation, I had my own cost center. I had to balance my own budgets. I had to manage my own payroll, performance, manage all of my employees, the team that worked for me and stuff. So I'm learning how to do all this stuff that I'm going to have to do when I open the doors to my own place, so I really learned a lot of that through on-the-job training. And I do want to be clear on something. Going to college and doing what I did in corporate are two completely different experiences, because I didn't go to college. I didn't do what I just recommended you should do. I used my GI Bill benefits, but I took the path to least resistance. I got like a communications degree and a minor in American military history because I really enjoy that stuff, but that taught me nothing. The only thing I could do out of college with any real proficiency was write a press release.
Right.
And I'm glad I did that, because I just wrote one the other day and it got picked up by a bunch of news stations, but like that's a $30,000 education that the government paid for for a press release, you know? So if I was going back and talking to myself, you know, because I had this image of what I wanted to be when I grew up, and it's what I am right now, you know,
Right.
a CEO of a company, but I could go anywhere and I could do anything that I want, you know? So I would have gotten on a learning path that gave me those fundamental skills. So that way, when I did go to corporate, or if I felt at the time I was ready to open my own thing, it wouldn't have felt like I didn't know nearly enough of what I should. So the difference I would say too, this between school and actually doing it is like being on the rifle range during grass week and clicking a rifle at a barrel and then being dropped into Fallujah in 2005. You know, it's the things start to come at you so much quicker, and you don't really, you're just reading and reacting, you're blocking and tackling. So, you know, the education and the experience under somebody else's umbrella, like to do the entrepreneur thing, is invaluable, because the day it's all on you, the pressure and the stakes are so much higher that you're going to want to have as much of that experience in grass week and on the rifle range as you could possibly get.
Definitely. So from that, right, obviously there's a ton, I think more every day, of veteran CEOs who are running fantastic companies, you know, all different marketplaces, right? Obviously you're someone who is willing to help veterans and kind of get them in this path and teach them and grow. That's a big part of your content and a lot of the stuff you put out on LinkedIn. What do you think we have to do to get other, you know, C-class veterans, director level veterans to open up kind of their knowledge to other people who get in? Because it's great for someone like you who does it, but in order for us to kind of flip that 67%, we need more people, right?
Yeah. No, it's not a one-man mission, right, or a 10-man mission. You know, you gotta, I read a statistic, and this will sound crazy when I say it. It's an older statistic, so it might have changed, but at one time in like the last decade, the number of CEOs of Fortune 500 companies that had military experience, it was like 240 of the 500 CEOs had military experience.
Yep.
That is so much knowledge that can benefit the next generation. Guys like you and me who are getting out there and trying to do it and talking about our journey along the way, but that haven't even gotten close to where those guys are,
right?
You know, so those guys and gals, sorry, so men and women, but yeah, so no, I think it's about encouraging each other. I've become incredibly passionate, it may be interested is the word, about the concept of a signal fire. And I think it's relevant to what you're saying. And you know, I do a lot of affirmations to myself. I do them with my daughters. My wife does them, because I just believe that repeating those words over and over again, your brain starts to believe that, and that's what you become. For some reason, like the past week and a half, I've just been kind of telling myself, Rob, you're a signal fire. You know, you're going to attract, what you're doing is going to attract other people. And when their fire's lit, then they become a signal fire, and so forth and so on. You think about what was the Lord of the Rings movies.
I was just gonna say it.
They light it, yeah. They light the torch of Gondor, right? And then it's all over the mountains, and it's going all over Middle Earth. Like, that's what this takes, is for one person to see another person and then be like, "Yo, I got something to add to this."
It's definitely happening. I mean, I've been involved in this space in terms of the veteran advocacy space for a very short amount of time, right? I've always tried to keep up to date with what's going on with veterans, being one, and just always, of course, you know, different groups. If I can help anyone, I'm always going to be there. But really plugging in and seeing what is out there and how we can improve for the next generation of people who are getting out of the military, or help veterans right now who just need that little push to get going in their career. And it's that's what I tell everyone. It's crazy the amount of content that's out there right now, and the amount of help that's out there. And it does seem like it's exploding. on a daily basis, there's another person who's getting on board, who's taking some time out to either share some knowledge, like you said, or have a webinar right now. Like even with everything going on with COVID, and I'm in California, so we're still locked down.
Right.
But there's job postings every day. There's tips. There's how to build your resume. Like it's definitely out there. So it's exciting because I don't think we've ever seen as much of it as we have now.
No, we haven't. And there's some great things that are happening under the surface too as well. So if you're a veteran, you can get a free LinkedIn Navigator membership. Mm-hmm. So you said it when you got out in 2012. There was LinkedIn, but you weren't on it. I wasn't on it. I didn't know how to use it. And so now you have DOD and SkillBridge and TAPS pushing people towards going to LinkedIn. Okay, so that's number one. So the audience is growing, and then you have thought leaders that are out there that are just pumping valuable content out every single day, and so they're going to pick it up. This is when the moment hit me, because I maybe it was like 2 or 3 months ago. I wanted to put my money where my mouth is. I said, I want to hire a transitioning veteran to work for my company as an entrepreneur, somebody who wants to do it on their own but needs to learn under my umbrella. I got a message from a staff sergeant up at Camp Lejeune, and he said, hey, my office gunny said I should give you a call. Okay, so he gave me a call. We scheduled an interview at my office. He wasn't on LinkedIn, but his gunny was. So, so people are seeing the content that we're pushing out, and they're taking it and they're saying, hey, you need to do something with this.
Awesome.
So the audience is there, the performers are there. Now, right now, we just need to grow both of those things. So it's happening, to use your words, it's happening. Let's just keep dumping fuel on that fire.
Yeah, it's cool. I love when I engage and I actually see active duty personnel using LinkedIn. That is the best, because that's when you can tell, like, even if they're going to do 20 years and they've still got another 10 years left, the fact that they're engaging for, the 21-year-old Lance Corporal who's doing 4 years and getting out, like you said, you're hoping that company gunny, that company first sergeant is saying, I saw this program here, look at these resources. And even if, the younger guy or girl getting out isn't engaged, as some of the senior enlisted is, you just hope that they are sending that knowledge. And it is kind of just keeping the message going. So I think it's definitely happening. It's awesome when I see, again, just 21-year-olds who, hey, I'm getting out in 6 months. I want to start the process now. What can I do? As opposed to, I'm very open about, I got out and I was just like, oh shit, I'm out. Like, I'm out. All right, let's figure this out.
What are we doing now? Yeah,
exactly. So it's great to see, and obviously all the other, like you said, the DoD SkillBridge and all these other things that are out there are just awesome. But the reason I want to talk to you is I feel like you have such a more like you've pulled back the way of looking at it, and as opposed to where a lot of the groups that are out there are very structured in terms of like, you got to do these steps, all right, let's craft your resume, let's do all these things. I love that you look at it from more of a classic be your own boss.
Yeah.
Which I think does make sense for veterans, because we're a weird bunch of people. Like
That's well said.
We're the misfit toys in a lot of situations. So we know how to work hard. That's obvious. That goes without saying, but working for yourself and feeling accomplished, I think that a lot of that has to do with the esprit de corps, the military background and everything. So it's refreshing, and it's very, lively and upbeat and everything. So I just think it's fantastic, with stuff.
Well, it was cool. I had the opportunity through one of my posts, a master gunnery sergeant who's been in the Marines since the early 90s reached out to me and was like, hey, Rob, I'm transitioning. EAS is May of next year. I'm going on terminal leave May, and then December is when I'm done. Can I have a conversation with you? And I was like, hell yeah, Top. Let's have a conversation. And just to be clear, I got out as a sergeant, so by comparison, our careers are not even close.
Exactly.
Not even close, and he was asking me for advice. So the roles are completely reversed from what I experienced in the Marine Corps. And this kind of goes into my approach to it. which you touched upon. He said, in your opinion, what's the most important thing that I need to do the day after I'm out of the military? And his name is Tim. I said, you got to spend as much time as necessary to find Tim. You can no longer be Master Gunnery Sergeant. You got to find out who Tim is. And that's what I've done a lot of, like that's why I let my hair grow out and why I'm just like into super chill vibes. And, it's like, I wanted to keep all of the best things that I got in the Marine Corps. And I wanted those to be there just underneath the surface. But I wanted to let go of a lot of the things that I no longer identified with. So that way my true self could come back out, because I'm most comfortable in jeans and a t-shirt, just riffing it with people. I'm very professional at what it is that I do, but I needed to be into my most comfortable, most relaxed self, because that's what makes me happy. And I think, that's how I approach everything. That's how I approach my video content, having conversations with transitioning veterans, how I run my business, all that. So, that's the best piece of advice I can give to a transitioning veteran. If you've got 6 months of terminal leave, the temptation is going to be to double dip, get a job, get whatever your pay you're getting from the military, get that there, and then get yourself into a cash positive position that'll help you. And that's important. But I think it's more important you take a month and a half, 2 months, however long it is, decompress, deinstitutionalize, and find who you are without rank and uniform on. Because it'll serve you more in the coming decades and years than an extra 5 to 10 grand in your pocket might.
That's awesome. It's such a great message. And I think that's important even for people who have been out I got out in 2012, and I still think I need to go through that process of
Dude, I still do it.
And
every day. Yeah.
What do I really care about?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. It's not a destination. It's a journey. And that's a cliche phrase, but every day I feel like I'm a little bit different than I was the day before. And so I try to explore that. Okay. Why am I feeling this way? Does this make me happy? What this current path within the grander scheme of paths that I'm on, is this something I keep doing, or do I compartmentalize that and then reshift my focus? So, it's a never ending process of self-improvement and defining yourself and redefining yourself and finding who you are. So.
Awesome, man. Look, I think you've got a great message. You're doing amazing work right now, just engaging with everyone across, whether it's LinkedIn, all the content that you're pushing out. And I want to be cognizant of your time. So just a huge thank you. This was awesome, brother. It was great to learn more about your story and kind of your background and your insight. So I'm sure we're going to be seeing a ton more of you, and we'll definitely have to catch up again.
Yeah. As long as I draw breath, I will continue to do this till the problem is fixed. I will continue to do this.
All right.
So it's not going away anytime soon.
That's right. All right, man.